In the grand halls of Westminster Abbey, where centuries of royal history echo through ancient stones, something extraordinary was about to unfold. Among the sea of perfectly positioned royals, dignitaries, and invited guests, a young princess was preparing to step beyond the shadows of protocol and tradition. This wasn't just another royal appearance or carefully orchestrated public engagement. This was the night when Princess Charlotte of Wales would show the world that sometimes the most powerful moments come from the most unexpected sources. The Christmas Carol concert of 2023 was meant to be a celebration of community, hope, and the festive spirit. But what happened that evening would become a defining moment that revealed the true character of future queen. In a world where every royal gesture is scrutinized and every public appearance carefully planned, Princess Charlotte was about to demonstrate that authenticity and genuine emotion can shine brighter than any crown jewel. What began as a traditional royal Christmas celebration would transform into a touching display of compassion, maturity, and the kind of leadership that cannot be taught in any palace classroom. The cameras were rolling, the world was watching, and a young princess was about to show everyone what it truly means to serve with heart. The winter evening of December 8th, 2023, brought with it the kind of crisp London air that makes Christmas feel magical. Inside the towering stone walls of Westminster Abbey, preparations were underway for what many consider the highlight of the royal Christmas calendar. The annual Christmas Carol concert, hosted by Catherine, Princess of Wales, had become a cherished tradition that brought together people from all walks of life to celebrate the true spirit of the season. Princess Charlotte arrived at Westminster Abbey alongside her parents, Prince William and Catherine, and her brothers, Prince George and Prince Louis. At 8 years old, she had already attended several public events, but there was something different about her demeanor that evening. While her younger brother Louis fidgeted with excitement, and her older brother George maintained his composed royal bearing, Charlotte seemed unusually focused and observant. As the royal family made their way through the abbey, Charlotte's eyes weren't fixed on the magnificent architecture or the gathering crowds of photographers. Instead, she was watching the people around her with an intensity that caught the attention of those nearby. Her small hand gripped her mother's a little tighter than usual, and her steps were measured and deliberate. The abbey itself was a sight to behold that evening. Hundreds of candles flickered against the ancient stone walls, casting dancing shadows that seemed to bring the historical space to life. The scent of pine and winter flowers filled the air, while the soft murmur of conversation created a warm atmosphere despite the grandeur of the setting. Golden decorations caught the light, and the massive Christmas tree at the front of the abbey stood as a beacon of festive joy. As guests began to take their seats, Charlotte noticed something that would set the tone for the entire evening. Among the invited attendees were representatives from various charitable organizations, community groups, and individuals who had overcome significant challenges throughout the year. These weren't just VIPs or dignitaries. These were real people with real stories, and Charlotte seemed to understand the significance of their presence. Her mother, Catherine, had specifically chosen to make this year's concert a celebration of those who had shown extraordinary kindness and resilience in their communities. The guest list included NHS workers who had gone above and beyond during difficult times, teachers who had made significant impacts on their students' lives, and volunteers who had dedicated countless hours to helping others. As the family settled into their designated seats in the front section of the abbey, Charlotte's attention was drawn to a young girl sitting several rows behind them. The girl appeared to be around her own age, perhaps slightly younger, and was accompanied by what appeared to be her grandmother. What made this moment significant wasn't just Charlotte's observation, but what she noticed about the girl's behavior. The young girl seemed overwhelmed by the grandeur of the setting. Her eyes were wide with wonder, but there was also a hint of nervousness in her expression. She kept looking around as if she wasn't quite sure she belonged in such an impressive place. Her grandmother, a woman with kind eyes and gentle hands, was trying to comfort her granddaughter, but It was clear that the child was feeling out of place among all the formally dressed guests and royal protocol. Charlotte watched this interaction for several minutes, her own understanding of what it felt like to be in the spotlight, creating an unexpected connection with this stranger. Despite being born into royalty, Charlotte had experienced her own moments of uncertainty during public appearances. She understood the feeling of being watched, of wanting to do everything perfectly, and of sometimes feeling overwhelmed by expectations. The concert began with a beautiful rendition of traditional Christmas carols, performed by accomplished choirs whose voices filled every corner of the abbey. The music was heavenly, creating an atmosphere of peace and reflection that seemed to transport everyone present to a different realm. Catherine had carefully chosen each musical selection to reflect themes of hope, love, and community service. During the first few songs, Charlotte remained seated with her family, participating in the program as expected. She sang along when appropriate, her clear young voice blending with those around her. But her attention kept drifting back to the young girl behind them, who seemed to be struggling with the formal nature of the event. The girl appeared increasingly uncomfortable as the evening progressed. While others around her seemed completely at ease in the formal setting, she kept shifting in her seat and looking toward the exits. Her grandmother continued to offer quiet reassurance, but it was evident that the child was having difficulty enjoying what should have been a wonderful experience. Charlotte found herself thinking about how different this experience must be for someone who wasn't used to royal events and formal ceremonies. While Westminster Abbey felt familiar to her, she could imagine how intimidating it might seem to someone attending for the first time. The grandeur that felt normal to Charlotte might feel overwhelming to others. As the concert reached its midpoint, there was a brief intermission during which guests were invited to move around and greet one another. This was typically a time for adults to engage in polite conversation and for the royal family to interact with selected guests. Protocol usually dictated that the royals would remain in their designated area and receive visitors who were formally introduced to them. However, Charlotte had other plans. While her parents engaged in conversation with Abbey officials and distinguished guests, she quietly excused herself and began making her way through the crowd. Her movement was purposeful, and those who noticed her path realized she was heading directly toward the young girl who had captured her attention. The moment Charlotte approached the girl and her grandmother marked the beginning of what would become one of the most touching interactions of the entire evening. Without any fanfare or announcement, without waiting for formal introductions or protocol procedures, Princess Charlotte simply walked up to the pair and introduced herself. Her approach was genuine and warm, completely devoid of the formality that usually characterizes royal interactions. She didn't wait for others to facilitate the meeting or follow the typical procedures that govern how royals engage with members of the public. Instead, she took the initiative to reach out to someone she sensed might need a friendly face. The grandmother's expression immediately shifted from surprise to delight as she realized who was approaching them. But, more importantly, the young girl's face lit up with a mixture of amazement and relief. Here was someone close to her own age, someone who understood what it was like to be a child in an adult world of formal expectations and careful behavior. What happened next would become the defining moment of the evening, setting in motion a series of interactions that would demonstrate Princess Charlotte's natural instincts for compassion and leadership. The conversation that followed would reveal not just her ability to connect with others, but her understanding of when protocol should take a back seat to human kindness. The Abbey continued to buzz with activity around them as other guests mingled and enjoyed the intermission. But in that small corner where Charlotte had created her own informal receiving line, something special was beginning to unfold. The young princess was about to show everyone present that sometimes the most meaningful royal duties are the ones that come from the heart rather than from a handbook of procedures. Charlotte knelt down slightly to meet the young girl at eye level, a gesture that immediately put both the child and her grandmother at ease. Her voice was soft and friendly as she said, "Hello, I'm Charlotte. I noticed you seemed a little nervous, and I wanted to make sure you're enjoying the concert." The young girl, whose name was Emma, could hardly believe that Princess Charlotte was talking directly to her. Emma had been invited to the concert because her mother was a nurse who had worked tirelessly during the pandemic, often missing family celebrations to care for patients. This evening was meant to be a special recognition of her mother's service, but Emma's mother had been called away for an emergency shift at the hospital. Her grandmother had brought her instead, not wanting the child to miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Emma's grandmother, Mrs. Patricia Williams, had been worried about bringing her 7-year-old granddaughter to such a formal event. She feared Emma might feel out of place among all the distinguished guests and complex protocol. Her concerns had proven justified when Emma became increasingly overwhelmed by the grandeur of Westminster Abbey and the formal nature of the proceedings. Charlotte sensed there was more to Emma's discomfort than simple nervousness about being at a royal event. With the intuitive understanding that children often possess, she asked Emma about her family and what had brought her to the concert. As Emma explained about her mother's work and the last-minute change of plans, Charlotte's expression grew thoughtful and compassionate. The conversation revealed Emma's disappointment that her mother couldn't attend the event meant to honor her service. Emma had been looking forward to sharing this special experience with her mother, and while she loved her grandmother dearly, she felt sad that the person being celebrated wasn't there to enjoy the recognition she deserved. Charlotte listened intently to Emma's story, asking thoughtful questions and showing genuine interest in learning about Emma's mother's work at the hospital. She wanted to understand not just why Emma was there, but what this evening meant to her family. This wasn't just polite royal conversation. Charlotte was making a real effort to connect with Emma's experience and emotions. As their conversation continued, other guests began to notice the interaction taking place. What struck many observers was how natural and unforced Charlotte's engagement appeared. She wasn't performing for cameras or fulfilling an official duty. She was simply one child reaching out to another who needed comfort and companionship. Charlotte's parents, Prince William and Catherine, eventually noticed their daughter's absence from their immediate vicinity and looked around to locate her. When they spotted her deep in conversation with Emma and Mrs. Williams, their expressions showed pride rather than concern about protocol being set aside. They recognized the significance of what their daughter was doing and chose not to interrupt the meaningful interaction. The conversation between Charlotte and Emma evolved naturally from introductions to shared interests and experiences. Charlotte asked Emma about school, her favorite subjects, and her hobbies. She discovered that Emma loved reading, particularly fairy tales and adventure stories, and that she enjoyed drawing and painting in her free time. Charlotte shared that she also enjoyed reading and that she liked horses and outdoor activities. What made this exchange remarkable wasn't just the content of their conversation, but the way Charlotte made Emma feel heard and valued. She asked follow-up questions, remembered details Emma had mentioned earlier, and showed genuine enthusiasm for learning about Emma's interests. For a child who had been feeling overwhelmed and out of place, this attention from someone close to her own age was transformative. Mrs. Williams watched this interaction with growing amazement. She had worried about how to help her granddaughter navigate such an intimidating environment. But here was a young princess doing exactly what Emma needed. Charlotte's approach was so natural and kind that it seemed to dissolve all the formality and protocol that had been making Emma uncomfortable. As the intermission was drawing to a close, Charlotte made a decision that would become the most talked-about moment of the entire evening. Rather than simply saying goodbye to Emma and returning to her family's designated seats, she asked Mrs. Williams if Emma would like to sit with her family for the remainder of the concert. This invitation wasn't something Charlotte could extend without her parents' approval, and it certainly wasn't part of any official protocol. But Charlotte's instincts told her that Emma would enjoy the concert more if she didn't have to worry about proper behavior and formal expectations. Sitting with the royal family would actually be less pressure for Emma than sitting in the general seating area, where she felt she had to be on her best behavior. Charlotte approached her parents to request permission for her new friend to join them. She explained Emma's situation and asked if there might be room for Emma and her grandmother to sit closer to the front. Prince William and Catherine immediately understood their daughter's reasoning and were happy to accommodate the request. The logistics of rearranging seating at a formal royal event would normally require significant coordination and planning. However, the flexibility shown by the royal protection officers and Abbey staff demonstrated their recognition that something special was happening that transcended normal procedures. Within minutes, arrangements were made for Emma and Mrs. Williams to join the royal family in their section. As Emma and her grandmother were guided to their new seats, Emma's transformation was visible to everyone nearby. Her nervousness had been replaced by excitement, and her earlier discomfort had given way to genuine joy. She was no longer a child trying to navigate an intimidating formal event. She was Charlotte's guest, and that made all the difference in how she experienced the remainder of the evening. Charlotte made sure Emma felt included as they settled into their new seating arrangement. She pointed out different features of the Abbey, explained some of the traditions associated with the Christmas carol service, and made sure Emma could see everything that was happening on stage. Her attention to Emma's comfort and enjoyment never wavered, even as the formal program resumed. When the concert reconvened, Charlotte continued to serve as Emma's informal guide and companion. She helped Emma follow along with the program, quietly explained what was happening during different parts of the service, and shared her own reactions to the beautiful music and readings. Charlotte's behavior demonstrated an understanding that being a good host means ensuring your guest feels welcome and included. The remaining portion of the concert featured some of the most beautiful music of the evening. Professional choirs performed stunning arrangements of traditional Christmas carols, and there were readings that reflected on themes of service, compassion, and community. The atmosphere in the Abbey was magical, with candlelight creating a warm glow that seemed to embrace everyone present. Emma found herself completely immersed in the experience, no longer worried about whether she belonged there or whether she was behaving appropriately. Charlotte's friendship had given her the confidence to simply enjoy the beauty of the moment. She sang along with the carols, listened intently to the readings, and marveled at the incredible acoustics of the ancient Abbey. Charlotte seemed to take as much pleasure in Emma's enjoyment as Emma was experiencing herself. She would occasionally glance at her new friend to gauge her reactions to different parts of the program, and her own smile would brighten whenever she saw Emma particularly engaged or delighted by something happening on stage. The evening was becoming more than just a successful royal event or a beautiful Christmas concert. It was transforming into a demonstration of how genuine human connection can elevate any experience and how small acts of kindness can have profound impacts. Charlotte's decision to reach out to Emma was creating ripple effects that extended far beyond their immediate interaction. As the concert moved toward its conclusion, it became clear that this evening would be remembered not just for its musical excellence or its celebration of community service, but for the moment when a young princess chose compassion over protocol and created a friendship that exemplified the true spirit of Christmas. As the final carol echoed through Westminster Abbey, the congregation remained still for a moment, absorbing the beauty of what they had just experienced. The last notes seemed to hang in the air, creating a sense of peaceful completion that marked the end of a truly special evening. Charlotte and Emma sat side by side, both moved by the music and the magical atmosphere that had surrounded them. When the applause began, Charlotte noticed that Emma was clapping with genuine enthusiasm, her earlier nervousness completely forgotten. The transformation in Emma throughout the evening had been remarkable to witness. From a child who had felt overwhelmed and out of place, she had become someone who was fully present and engaged in the experience, largely due to Charlotte's thoughtful friendship and inclusion. As the formal conclusion of the concert approached, Charlotte realized that the evening was coming to an end, and she would soon have to say goodbye to her new friend. However, she wasn't quite ready to let this meaningful connection end with just a simple farewell. Charlotte had an idea that would ensure this special evening would have a lasting impact for Emma and her family. During the final moments of the service, Charlotte quietly spoke with her mother about her idea. She wanted to do something that would honor Emma's mother, the NHS nurse who had missed this recognition ceremony because she was caring for patients. Charlotte understood that while she had been able to help Emma enjoy the evening, the original purpose of their invitation was to celebrate her mother's service and dedication. Catherine immediately understood her daughter's thinking and was proud of Charlotte's desire to extend their kindness beyond the immediate moment. They discussed possible ways to ensure that Emma's mother would still feel recognized and appreciated for her service, even though she couldn't attend the concert herself. As guests began to prepare for departure, Charlotte asked Emma if she would like to take some photos together as a memory of their special evening. Emma's eyes lit up with excitement at this suggestion. For a child who had started the evening feeling uncertain and nervous, the idea of having photographs with Princess Charlotte as a keepsake seemed almost too wonderful to believe. The photos that were taken captured the genuine friendship that had developed between the two girls throughout the evening. Charlotte's arm was around Emma's shoulders, and both girls were smiling naturally and warmly. These weren't formal, posed royal photographs. They were pictures of two children who had formed a real connection and wanted to remember their time together. Mrs. Williams watched these interactions with deep gratitude and amazement. She had brought her granddaughter to this event, hoping that Emma would have a positive experience despite her mother's absence. What had actually happened exceeded her most optimistic expectations. Not only had Emma enjoyed the concert, but she had formed a friendship with Princess Charlotte that had transformed what could have been an intimidating evening into something magical and meaningful. Charlotte then surprised everyone by asking if she could write a personal note to Emma's mother. She wanted to make sure that the nurse who had missed the concert while caring for others would know that her service had been noticed and appreciated. Charlotte understood that recognition from a member of the royal family would mean a great deal to someone who had dedicated herself to helping others. The note that Charlotte wrote was heartfelt and personal. She thanked Emma's mother for her service to the community and explained how much she had enjoyed meeting Emma and learning about their family's dedication to helping others. Charlotte also mentioned that Emma had been wonderful company during the concert and that she hoped they might be able to meet again in the future. This gesture demonstrated Charlotte's understanding that the real purpose of the evening was to recognize and celebrate people like Emma's mother who had made significant contributions to their communities. By ensuring that the absent nurse still felt honored and appreciated, Charlotte was fulfilling the true spirit of the event in a way that went beyond formal protocols and official procedures. As the royal family prepared to leave Westminster Abbey, Charlotte's interaction with Emma continued to draw positive attention from other guests and observers. Many people had witnessed at least part of their evening together, and the consensus was overwhelmingly positive. Charlotte's natural kindness and genuine care for others had made a strong impression on everyone who had observed her behavior. The media representatives who were present at the concert immediately recognized the significance of what they had witnessed. Charlotte's spontaneous friendship with Emma and her thoughtful gestures throughout the evening represented exactly the kind of authentic royal engagement that the public found most appealing and meaningful. This wasn't a scheduled photo opportunity or a carefully orchestrated public relations moment. It was genuine human kindness in action. Before saying their final goodbyes, Charlotte made sure to get Mrs. Williams's contact information so that she could follow up on her promise to send the note to Emma's mother. She also expressed hope that they might be able to arrange another meeting between herself and Emma in the future, perhaps under less formal circumstances where they could spend more time getting to know each other. Emma's goodbye to Charlotte was emotional but happy. She thanked Charlotte for making her feel welcome and for helping her enjoy the concert. Emma told Charlotte that this had been one of the best evenings of her life, and that she couldn't wait to tell her mother about everything that had happened. The genuine affection between the two girls was evident to everyone who witnessed their farewell. In the days following the concert, Charlotte kept her promise to write to Emma's mother. The personal note was delivered along with some photographs from the evening and a formal acknowledgement of the nurse's service to the community. When Emma's mother received these items, she was deeply moved by Charlotte's thoughtfulness and the care that had been shown to her daughter during the concert. The story of Charlotte's kindness to Emma quickly spread beyond the immediate attendees of the concert. News outlets picked up on the heartwarming interaction, but more importantly, it became a story that people shared with their friends and family as an example of how small acts of kindness can make a big difference in someone's life. For Emma, the evening became a cherished memory that she would carry with her for years to come. The experience taught her that even in the most formal and intimidating situations, there can be opportunities for genuine human connection and friendship. Charlotte's behavior had shown Emma that kindness and inclusion matter more than protocol, and that reaching out to others is always the right choice. Charlotte's actions that evening revealed important aspects of her character that would serve her well in her future role as a member of the royal family. She had demonstrated emotional intelligence, compassion, and leadership in a way that felt natural and authentic. Her ability to recognize when someone needed support and her willingness to act on that recognition showed a maturity that impressed everyone who witnessed it. The Christmas Carol concert of 2023 would be remembered for many reasons. The beautiful music, the celebration of community service, and the magical atmosphere of Westminster Abbey during the Christmas season. However, for those who were present that evening, it would be most remembered as the night when Princess Charlotte showed the world what it truly means to serve others with grace, kindness, and genuine care. The impact of Charlotte's actions extended far beyond that single evening. Her example inspired others to look for opportunities to include and support people who might feel uncertain or out of place. The story became a reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply notice when someone needs a friend and take action to provide that friendship. Emma's mother returned to her work at the hospital with renewed energy and pride, knowing that her service had been recognized in such a meaningful way. Emma herself became more confident in social situations, having learned that reaching out to others and being kind can transform any experience. And Charlotte had discovered the deep satisfaction that comes from using one's position and privileges to make others feel valued and included. The evening had begun as a traditional royal Christmas concert and had evolved into something much more significant, a demonstration of how authentic leadership emerges not from titles or positions, but from genuine care for others and the courage to act on that care when it matters most.